The last thing I expected to find during my morning shift as a Yellowstone ranger was another ranger who didn't have a shadow. It was July 2019, and I'd been working the backcountry patrol for 3 years. That particular morning, I was checking the remote trail registers near Shoshone Lake when I saw him, a fellow ranger, standing about 50 yards ahead on the trail. Nothing unusual about that, except I hadn't been notified of anyone else being assigned to this sector. The morning sun was bright behind him, casting long shadows from the lodgepole pines across the trail. But where his shadow should have been, there was nothing, just sunlit ground. I called out the standard greeting, "Morning! Didn't know anyone else was working this section today." He turned slowly, and I recognized the uniform, standard NPS green and gray, complete with the arrowhead patch. But his face, I couldn't quite focus on it. It was like trying to remember a dream after waking up. The features were there, but they kept sliding away from my attention. "Just checking on things," he said, his voice carrying that flat, official tone we all develop after enough years in the service. "You should head back. Weather's coming in."
I glanced at the cloudless sky. We hadn't had any weather warnings on the radio that morning. "Everything looks clear to me," I said, taking a step closer. That's when I noticed his boots weren't leaving prints in the soft dirt of the trail. He tilted his head slightly, and for just a moment I could have sworn his uniform looked older, like the style they wore back in the 80s. "Sometimes the weather comes from places you don't expect," he said. "There's a group of hikers about 2 miles north. They're going to need help soon." Before I could respond, my radio crackled to life. Base was calling about an emergency beacon activation approximately 2 miles north of my position. I grabbed the radio to respond, and when I looked back up, the ranger was walking away, moving between the trees with an odd, gliding motion. I started to follow, but something made me look down at the ground where he'd been standing.
In the exact spot where his shadow should have been, the pine needles were frost-covered, despite the July heat. They crunched under my boots as I stepped on them, releasing a smell like winter mornings. I found the hikers right where he said they'd be, a family of 4. Their youngest had suffered a severe allergic reaction to a bee sting, and they'd used their EpiPen but needed immediate evacuation. I coordinated the helicopter rescue, and everyone made it out safely. The whole time I kept scanning the tree line, looking for that strange ranger. When I got back to the station that evening, I casually asked about other rangers working the Shoshone Lake sector. My supervisor checked the logs and confirmed I'd been the only one assigned to that area all week. I described the ranger I'd seen, trying to keep my tone conversational, like I was just curious about running into a colleague. Old Jim, who'd been with the Park Service for 30 years, overheard our conversation. He pulled me aside later, his weathered face serious. "You met him on the trail by Shoshone?" When I nodded, he continued, "Same thing happened to me in '92 and to Rebecca in 2001. Always shows up before something bad almost happens. Always warns people."
He reached into his desk and pulled out a faded photograph from 1980. It showed a group of rangers at the Shoshone Lake patrol cabin. He pointed to one figure in the back. Paul Fugate went missing during a routine patrol in January 1980. Never found him, but every few years someone reports meeting a ranger out there who doesn't quite seem right. No shadow, no footprints, always knows when someone's in trouble. I researched Paul Fugate that night. He'd been 41 when he disappeared from Chiricahua National Monument after leaving for a routine hike. Despite extensive searches, no trace of him was ever found. The case had been cold for decades. But here's what really disturbed me. Fugate had disappeared in Arizona, not Yellowstone. And according to the reports, dozens of park rangers have vanished without explanation over the years, their disappearances becoming part of the unsolved mysteries that haunt America's national parks.
I put in for a transfer the next month, not because I was scared exactly, but because I couldn't stop thinking about what he'd said, about weather coming from unexpected places. I couldn't stop checking behind me on trails, looking for rangers with no shadows. I couldn't stop wondering if one day I might become one of them. The family I rescued sent me a thank you card for Christmas that year. They included a photo from their trip, taken about an hour before the emergency. In the background, barely visible between the trees, there's a figure in a ranger uniform. The photo is time-stamped 30 minutes before I ever saw him on the trail, and even in the photograph, he has no shadow.